Welcome back to Grasping the Gridiron. I'm your host, Zach Thummel, and today we'll be looking at my teams to watch for this season in college football, and I'll also be giving my preseason Pacific Northwest power rankings. Alrighty, so for my first team to watch for this next season, it's Arizona State. So off the bat, Arizona State loses Cam Scatabo, a guy that essentially led them to the college football semifinals last year, and a guy that just was an absolute wrecking ball between the tackles, outside the tackles, just anywhere on the field, and someone that's going to make a difference and an impact on an NFL team somewhere. But for Arizona State, I mean, they're losing him, and that's a big piece to fill. They also lose Leif Fatanu, who's their center. He's first team All Big 12, and he's a guy that just was the absolute anchor for them and someone that paved the way for Scatabo. But if you're Arizona State right now, I think they're a team to watch because they retained Sam Leavitt, their quarterback, who's going to be just a great additional leader for them. And then they also made the college football semifinals. So I'm a big believer in momentum and what it does for a team and what it does for a coach. And Kenny Dillingham's a young guy who got success and has had success early here as a head coach with Arizona State. So I think when you compile that, Kenny just knows what it takes to win now and what type of players he needs. So I believe that he has done that with his transfer portal class and his recruiting signees. And I think that this team will be a Big 12 contender and college football contender again. In the portal, obviously, like I mentioned, they lose Cam Scatabo, but they bring in Kanye Udo from Army. He's a running back that had 179 carries and 1,117 yards last season, and 10 touchdowns to go with that. But so he'll come into a room with Jason Brown Jr., Raleek Brown, Kyson Brown, and I mean these guys are Jason Brown specifically is a fun one because he is from O'Dea, Seattle High School, 3A school here in the state of Washington, and I think it'll be interesting to see if he can crack the rotation there. But for the time being, it seems to be Kyson Brown, Raleek Brown, and Kanye Udo who will take the reins there at tailback. And if you're Arizona State losing Cam Scatabo right now, you've got a variety of ways you can run the football with a variety of different backs. My second team here is UNLV. UNLV comes to mind because UNLV just got Dan Mullen as their head coach, and he's a guy with SEC experience at Mississippi State and Florida. And it really, I think, is a unique fit and one that pops out to me is just because they signed Alex Orji. Alex Orji's 6'3", 235 pounds, and he's a guy at Michigan that was a physical runner, and we didn't really get to see him pan out as a thrower per se, or just as a quarterback in general really for them. And that's why this is intriguing, because Dan Mullen is a guy that coached both for Florida as an offensive coordinator and a head coach. And when he was an offensive coordinator at Florida, you saw, what he could do with Tim Tebow. And Tim Tebow is, not to say that Orji's arm is limited per se, but Tim Tebow is more of a power running style quarterback, and that's what Alex Orji has done best in his skill set from what I've seen so far. And, if you just compare that just on a base level, Tim Tebow and Alex Orji have a very similar style of game. And if you're Dan Mullen, why not take advantage of this in a smaller conference where it may be a little bit of a down year? Boise State is a team that I think is going to regress. They lose Ashton Genty, and I think that this conference is going to be probably the weakest that it's ever been, just obviously with the way that the transfer portal is, and then the way that the conference is sort of phasing out to some degree with teams leaving to the Pac-12. But Yeah, I mean, if you're Dan Mullen and you can create this offense around Alex Orji in this somewhat weaker conference this year, I think you really have an opportunity to be a contender for the Mountain West title and then maybe make the college football playoff. And obviously, I wouldn't think that this team would be able to contend at the national level, but I do believe that they would be able to have some impact with Dan Mullen's experience in the SEC, and then you take that to the Mountain West. I think there's a clear path for UNLV to be the Mountain West champion. For our last team to watch for the 2025-2026 college football season, it's North Carolina. I mean, and the Tar Heels are just a team that, if you've been watching and keeping up with the landscape of college football, they're absolutely deserving of this spot on this list, and quite frankly, the most entertaining team to watch just on paper, because Bill Belichick has taken over the team. The 8-time Super Bowl champion will be in Chapel Hill and has been in Chapel Hill for some time now. And, I mean, he's done some damage already. He got the 12th ranked transfer portal class. And that just in and of itself, a guy that is coming straight out of the coming straight to Chapel Hill after, essentially losing his job in New England. I know they mutually parted ways. But Bill has had a couple years off, and he's had some time to reflect on maybe some of the things that he's done. And I think the fact that he could come in and recruit college kids and connect with college kids immediately and get that 12th ranked portal class in an unprecedented time in college football really shows the character behind Bill Belichick, I think. When you just think about the character and the leadership qualities that Bill Belichick possesses and that we've seen demonstrated just into the sporting world. I mean, obviously in the past it was more lead by example, and it was sort of funny because he was the guy that would talk and he'd be like, on to Cincinnati, like he was very monotone in his press conferences, and it seems now that he's lightened up quite a bit and is a guy that really is enjoying this next challenge. And to me, if you are in the ACC or in college football in general, I mean, that is pretty scary, because a light and loose and focused Bill Belichick with a new purpose, to me, is probably the scariest thing in college football more than any other player. Obviously they'll have to replace Marion Hampton, as he'll be a first-round pick in the NFL draft, but I believe that at the end of the day, Bill Belichick's body of work speaks for itself, and he will have this team on the right track in 2025 and 2026. And, even if they have a down year this year per se, I think that just the overall future of North Carolina football is up. So for our first power rankings of the 2025-2026 season, we'll be doing the Pacific Northwest power rankings. Obviously, these are early, and I'm making a generalization as to what teams in the Northwest I'm going to cover, but it'll be Washington State, Oregon State, Washington, Oregon, and Boise State, just the major FBS teams in the region. I'll start with the first-ranked team and then go to my last-ranked team. So for number one, I've got the Oregon Ducks. And this one is somewhat of an obvious selection here. I mean, I know they were the number one team in the country for a majority of last season, as far as, getting down to the thick of it there at the end, and won the Big Ten. And in their first year in the Big Ten, won it both in basketball and football. So I think, if there were any questions of if Oregon is here to stay in the Big Ten, I think those are out the window. For me, though, the big questions heading into next year, you lose Dylan Gabriel, who has played the most amount of time as a starting quarterback in college football, and you lose Jordan James at the tailback position. Terrence Ferguson at the tight end position, Johnny Cornelius, and Josh Connerly Jr. I think the right and left tackle for me are the big concerns, because Josh Connerly and Johnny Cornelius will both be NFL guys and probably contribute or start to some degree at some point in the league. So the question is there, I mean, who's going to replace? And this is where I really am excited, because Oregon went out and got Isaiah World, Emmanuel Pregnon, and Alex Harkey, the offensive lineman in the transfer portal. And those guys look like they have the potential to be plug and play right away. And, I really am high on this Oregon team, especially with returning Noah Whittington and Mekhi Hughes, and then you have your sophomore transfer stepping in, Dante Moore. I believe in what Dan Lanning has done in Eugene. I really do. I think that guy is a world beater and someone that will continue to install a great system in Oregon, especially defensively. I mean, this is a guy that is a defensive-based head coach, and then offensively, he goes out and fills the gaps that he needs to. He's not trying to do too much offensively. He goes a lot of RPO-style offense. I mean, that's what we saw with Dylan Gabriel. It was a lot of quick reads, get the hands into the players that you want to get the ball into the hand. Your playmakers, just get the ball there and let them do their thing. And I think that's why Dylan Gabriel was so successful last year. Also, he was great at making the correct read. But as we move into next year, I think the player to watch on this Oregon roster is tight end Kenyon Sadiq. I mean, Sadiq is a fun player because this guy, he was out of Idaho Falls. He went to Skyline High School down there in southern Idaho. And I'm excited to see what he can do with his first year in the full-time role at the tight end one position for Oregon. He'll be a junior. This guy's just really, really electric. Really, really electric. I was watching Connor Lee Jr. and, Cornelius, and just in the tape that I saw between them, I saw a lot of Kenyon Sadiq doing great things, both in the run game and in the pass game. And there was a play where I believe it was against Ohio State. He hurdled a defender, stayed in bounds, and then went into the end zone. And, that was just, I've never really seen that level of jumping ability from a tight end like that, and then staying on their feet and the elusiveness and the speed. I think Kenyon Sadiq is a guy that it will be not only fun to watch for next year, but a potential guy that NFL teams look to plug and play in certain scenarios. So as of right now, my number one team for the Pacific Northwest Power Rankings is the Oregon Ducks. My second ranked team is the Washington Huskies. Now, Washington, they come in with losing Will Rogers offensively, Kaleki Latu. Defensively, there's really nothing too much other than Cameron Fabiculanen. To me, the departures aren't nearly as good as the people that are coming in and the people that are entering for them. So, defensively, Washington's got Takario Davis coming in from Arizona, Tariq Alukda from Washington State, Exree Alexander from UCF and Idaho. This guy, or these two guys specifically, Tariq Alukda and Exree Alexander. Those two at the linebacker spot for Washington, I think, are great, just great upgrades. Obviously, you lose Carson Bruner, who is, just a big senior leader. But, I think in terms of the potential payoff, I think Tariq Alukda and Alexander will probably be better long-term for them. And Takario Davis is a lengthy 6'4" corner who's going to be, just most likely phenomenal for them. He's coming into Jed Fish's system, and I think when you lose Steve Belichick as your defensive coordinator, there are some question marks, but I really do believe that Jed Fish has the right system in place. Obviously, last year, at the beginning of the year, the Apple Cup loss to Washington State was a glaring thing for Washington fans. And, I think now, though, that they have more of a an athlete at quarterback in Damon Williams. I think that opens up their playbook a little more to, deviate from standard sets. You can kind of branch out there. And so I'm excited to see what this team looks like, and I'm confident that they will be better than they were last year, even though they were a bowl team. I think that Jonah Coleman, as a senior, just brings so much experience and depth, or so much experience and strength to that running back position. I think that they're gonna have themselves a great season this year. Maybe most likely better in the Big Ten, but not sure about overall. My third-ranked team is the Oregon State Beavers. Now, Oregon State is interesting because they just got Malik Murphy in the transfer portal, and they're coming off of a season where they basically, were an independent team, and the same with Washington State. And both Washington State and Oregon State will be playing each other twice this year, and this is sort of a transition year. And so I think this is a year where Oregon State could do some damage. You've got Trent Bray, your head coach, defensive mind, a guy that really came into his own last year, and they started to really pick up some momentum towards the end of the year. Had some quarterback issues. Giovanni McCoy just really didn't pan out in the transfer portal, and so they kind of had to bounce around. But now they got Malik Murphy from Duke. Go out and get him, pay him. You lose Joshua Gray on the offensive line, but nothing that's really too big of a concern. And then defensively, you don't really lose anyone. You just add people via the transfer portal. A guy like Rajon Davis coming in from the Mike linebacker position. I believe that Trent Bray is a really solid coach, and I think that he's going to, especially defensively, I think just the way that he's able to scheme up the 4-2-5 with, some players that are potentially not guys that would be successful at bigger schools, and yet he's able to win with less and do more with less. And I think that the future is incredibly bright for Oregon State and Trent Bray this season. Coming in at number 4, I've got the Washington State Cougars, and this one for me is more of a, addition by subtraction to some default. I think when you lose Jake Dickert, I think you've improved by adding Jimmy Rogers. And, I could be completely wrong on that, but from what I've seen, Jake Dickert has lost his locker room 2 years in a row, and they collapsed in the later half of the season 2 years in a row. And Jimmy Rogers obviously he's a guy that has won a national championship at South Dakota State, and is someone that it's hard to lose a locker room if you've won a national championship, and it's easier to retain players. Granted, it's the FCS and it's an FCS championship, but I think you can command more respect, and I just think that Jimmy Rogers is a football coach and a ball coach, and I think Jake Dickert is a quote machine and a defensive coordinator. And I that's no disrespect to Jake Dickert. I just think that he's not a head coach caliber guy. And maybe, obviously I could be wrong on that, and obviously we will see. But I firmly believe that this Cougar team will improve, not only because of who's in at head coach with them, but they just added basically all of South Dakota State's roster as far as the good players. And guys that pop into my head immediately, Angel Johnson, Kirby Voorhees, Tucker Large. These are guys that I just believe are going to make an impact for Washington State, and I think that they will certainly be a team. I don't know if they win 8 games next year, especially with this independent-esque roster. But I think they're certainly going to be about in that range. Maybe a 6-win team, I would hedge to say that, but or I would be more inclined to say that. But Washington State, I think, is in a better spot than they were with Jake Dickert. So the long term for them will be better than it was last year. And coming in at the number 5 spot, I've got Boise State. And Boise State, obviously right off the bat, they lose Ashton Jeanty, who was their offense. He rushed for 2,600 yards last year, and just a guy that was an absolute freak of nature and will be most likely a top 10 pick here in this NFL draft coming up. And I think that you lose way too much offensively for them to be very competent moving forward. I think Jambries Dunbar is and then Sire Gaines are very, very exciting pieces moving forward with this team, but I don't know. I mean, I really struggle to believe a guy like Maddox Madsen is going to move the needle for this team, and I really struggle to believe that. Like Austin Bolt, Latrell Caples, I don't know if those are really the guys that are going to get it done for this team. Because without that run game, any of that team's offense as far as play action and forgetting about where guys are on the field, it was all because of number 2. I mean, Ashton Jeanty was just an anomaly, and I think Boise State fans know that, but. And then when you flip to the defensive side, obviously you retain Jaden Virgin Morgan at your edge position, but you lose Sei Oladipo, you lose Sheldon Newton at your D tackle position, and then Ahmed Hassanin, who has just been an absolute game wrecker for you year in and year out. I don't know if. I think that what they have lost as far as impact is significantly more than what they've retained or got via the transfer portal. And just it comes back to Ashton Jeanty and Hassanin for me. Like, those two players were basically the go-to guys on both sides of the ball for needing a big play. And when you lose both of those, I just don't. I believe in Jambries Dunbar, but I don't think he's the same as Ashton Jeanty. And that's not a profound statement, but it does mean a lot in terms of what your offense is going to look and how you need to scheme things up. So coming in at number 5 is Boise State. Thank you for listening to Grasping the Gridiron. I'm your host, Zach Thummel, and as always, please like and subscribe on YouTube, share on Spotify, and leave your suggestions in the comments section below on either of those platforms. And I'm just really enjoying the growth I've seen from this podcast, and thank you guys for listening, because as we get closer and closer to the NFL draft, things will sort of ramp up, and it'll be more of a ranking-based show, and I'm just excited for all the content that I'm going to have out there.